We've known it's been coming for quite a while, but Spotify is finally introducing some artificial intelligence ad options for its platform. It's actually starting a new agency that's helping it work with larger brands to build AI ads. This is the kind of thing that could really juice the company's growth in advertising. Now, Spotify has long been a company that has relied on its premium business, those monthly fees that have actually ratcheted up slowly over time over the past year or two. That has been a huge boon for the company's stock, for profitability, especially as operating costs have come down. But the real potential for Spotify, the reason that I think this is an asymmetric stock, is because of advertising. If they can get advertising right, this could be a company that better monetizes music, podcasts, audiobooks than anybody else in the world. That would create the kind of two-sided market that you want from a technology company, where creatives have an incentive to be on Spotify, where users have an incentive to be on Spotify because that's where the best content is. I think this is the kind of thing that could be very bullish for Spotify long term. So let's dig into the little bit that we know now and how this ties into some announcements that we got about a year ago from Bill Simmons. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. So let's get to the initial reporting. Just to give an idea how long this has been coming, this was a tweet that I had in May 2023 about Bill Simmons dropping some interesting notes about AI plans at Spotify. Now, his company, The Ringer, was acquired by Spotify, so he knows what's going on there, but he said that they were testing AI ads and using audio in advertising then. And if you notice here, I was indeed the one who said that he should be called the sports czar. So just a fun fact there. But to get back to Spotify, what is going on here is they are doing two things. They're going to have an in-house ad agency called the Creative Lab, or Creative Agency. Now this is from TechCrunch. And what they're going to be doing is working with brands. So a lot of times what these companies and these social media networks do is they actually work with those big brands and say, hey, here's what's working. Here's the kind of creative you can use. Here's how the system works. They basically hold your hand through the system, through their advertising system. They want you to spend money, so they're going to make it easier for you to spend money by kind of helping you along the way. There's also going to be some AI tools for advertisers that they're supposedly calling Quick Audio, which enables brands to which, quote, enables brands to create scripts and voiceovers using generative AI. So why is this a big deal? Well, the biggest reason is that it's very difficult to create ads for the audio format. If you look at companies that are dominated by advertising, companies like Google and search, companies like Facebook, they're using things like images and text to drive their advertising. So a creative agency can create hundreds of images and they can test which ones work and which ones don't. They can test all kinds of text and test which ones work and which ones don't, and different combinations. All these things are doable on these platforms. It's much more difficult to record somebody's voice, record them reading some sort of ad, test how effective that ad is, then come back and change the audio. So what artificial intelligence is going to do is allow companies to just put creative in and test different kinds of creative with different kinds of voices. What Simmons said a year ago was that they were going to be able to use his voice. I think that was the example that he used. So think about any sort of personality on Spotify, anyone who wants to license out their voice, you could have Spotify actually doing that advertisement for smaller businesses where you are. So Spotify is moving towards these bigger brand advertisements to more targeting advertisements. I've noticed this on Spotify where, especially in podcasts where they're going to be inserting ads dynamically, they're now inserting more and more ads that are local to where I live. Instead of just being a brand or an internet company that's going to be all over the place, and it doesn't matter if you're living in the US or in Europe or Asia, they're now focusing on, okay, Travis lives here. I'm going to give an ad that's going to be relevant to him and you might more likely hear on the radio. What that is going to ultimately do is increase the number of advertisements that they're going to be able to serve on Spotify and increase the revenue per ad. There was a study last year that podcasts are only monetized at about 1/100th of the rate of radio. So if you think about how much money goes into radio, and there's still a ton of money that goes into radio today, that money really should be flowing through podcasts because it's much easier to target your customers on podcasts than it is on the radio, where it's just going out to anybody. You don't even know how many people are listening. Spotify has much more information on how many people are listening. Do they listen to the entire ad? Where do they live? Did they click on a link? This should be much better advertising. The problem has always been building the creative, building the actual audio that people are going to hear. That's where artificial intelligence comes in. I want to put some of these numbers into context. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. To get a feel for the opportunity, Spotify has 388 million users who are ad supported. So these are the people who are not paying for premium. Now, this does not mean that premium users don't also see ads from podcasts. So that would be the other piece of this, is that there are going to be people who would be seeing ads from things like podcasts or maybe audiobooks who are paying a premium subscription. So the user base from an advertising perspective, I would say, is at least 388 million, and probably significantly more than that. That is not going to compare to some of the bigger ad networks like Meta's ad network, which is going to be about 2 billion users, or Google's ad network, which is going to be at least 2 billion, probably. And they have, I think, 6 or 7 different products that have over 1 billion users. So we're not talking about the kind of scale that those companies have, but the scale for audio is really big and it's growing really quickly. The compound annual growth rate on that ad-supported side, just from a user base, is 24%. And Spotify has not been particularly good at monetizing those ad-supported users quite yet. This is a look at ad-supported revenue, which has grown at a compound annual growth rate of 30% since 2016. So a nice growth rate, but still not a huge business at only about $1.9 billion, and is just barely profitable from a gross profit perspective. So if you pull out operating expenses, probably losing money on the ad-supported side. And this gross profit margin should be much more like 40 or maybe even 50%. That's what you would expect from a lot of the other ad networks. So this is why I think this is the biggest opportunity for Spotify. You have at least 388, probably more users than that, who could be potentially served an increasing number of ads. You increase the amount of revenue that you're generating per ad. There should be a lot of operating margin in this business because they built a lot of these tools on the back end. Even the artificial intelligence tools are going to be things that they're going to build once, and there's not going to be a whole lot of cost that goes into them. So I think there's a tremendous amount of upside for Spotify in providing these kinds of tools to users and to advertisers to help monetize better. And I talked about this is a flywheel as well. So you have 3 pieces that are going to be involved in Spotify's business. You have the number of users, you have creators, and then you have advertisers. More advertisers means more money for creators. That means more creators coming to the Spotify platform, whether that's music, podcasts, or audiobooks. More creators leads to more users. More users leads to more advertisers. This is why this is the kind of business that can have asymmetric potential. Because once this flywheel gets going, and I think it is going at Spotify when you start to look at the number of users and the growth that they've had over the last few years, the better monetization on the premium side of the business, now you added better monetization on the advertising side of the business, and suddenly you get a very profitable business very quickly. We have already seen free cash flow shoot sharply higher over the past year. These are trailing 12-month numbers. It is very likely that Spotify is going to generate well over $1 billion worth of free cash flow in 2024, probably over $2 billion, although we'll see where the numbers actually come in. The company's market cap is $61 billion as I'm recording, so not the cheapest stock, but I think when you look at the growth potential in all of these markets, the way that they're able to bundle all these things together. I haven't even talked about Spotify moving more and more into video and the way that video could be monetized in different ways from audio-only platforms. I just think there is a ton to love about Spotify stock. Still, the stock is up well over 100% since I started buying in spring of 2023. I was covering it a lot on this channel then. Still one of my favorite stocks right now and the biggest holding in the asymmetric portfolio. So I love what they're doing. So I love that we're finally seeing some progress on these artificial intelligence tools for advertising. Spotify's not going to be the only company doing that, but they are the company with the network and the users from an audio side of things. So love their position right now. But what do you think about Spotify and AI advertising and the potential there? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.